we're gonna pick up with activity 36, and I just wanted to put an activity in here that talks a little bit about, while we're talking about the U.S. Constitution, some provisions of the U.S. Constitution that has to do with the protection of property. One of the really big things that was happening at the time of putting together the U.S. Constitution in 1787 was that the states had a lot of laws that were very troubling to the founders at the convention, especially Madison, but others as well, that did not respect the right to private property. And you can see this throughout what Madison has to say at the convention and in his writings. And in especially the Federalist Papers, if we begin with letter A, Madison addresses a number of things that the state governments were doing in the 1780s under the Articles of Confederation. The first thing that he mentions is paper money, that in order to pay their debts, the state governments issued paper money, which is pieces of paper, dollar bills, that are not backed by silver or gold, so the states can just print endless amounts of currency if they're not restricted by the amount of silver or gold that they possess. Notice that Madison refers to this as an improper or wicked project. The reason why he considers it improper or wicked is because it causes inflation, and that's precisely what happened in the States. So when a government just runs a printing press and prints money, it can pay its debts that way, but all the money that are in people's possession at that time suddenly goes down in value, because if you just think of supply and demand, when the supply of something increases, its value goes down. So as the supply of paper money increases, the value of everybody's paper money decreases, and so it causes a rise in prices. So the people who actually have possessions or money at the time can buy less, so their money is devalued. So it's as if government just reached its hand into their pockets and took money out of their wallets. So it's improper or wicked precisely because when government just prints money, it violates the right to property. Same would be true in letter A for an abolition of debts. If the federal government says to debtors, okay, you don't have to pay back your debts, it's just violated the right to property of the creditors. They have just been, in effect, stolen from their debtors. I mean, there is a time and a place for bankruptcy, but if you make the bankruptcy laws too lenient or just simply just abolish debts, then that is not fair and just to the people who lent the money in the first place. Equal division of property is improper or wicked because to get an equal division of property, you need to take from some and give to others. So I'm just emphasizing here that this is Madison setting up a standard of right and wrong, and the right to property is absolute, must be respected, and if government violates it, that's improper or wicked. In letter B, Madison just repeats this. It's just showing you that at the convention this was also a concern of his. He speaks of the necessity of providing more effectually for the security of private rights, and in particular he has the right to property in mind, we can see from other places. And he sees this as a threat to Republican liberty. If the people can get their government to violate the right of property of the minority, then it puts in danger the continuation of a Republican form of government. The minority will find a way to resist somehow. Letter C is always kind of difficult for students to understand, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. The Republican form of government is one that we have input into through our representatives in our legislature. So the danger here is that the people will actually try to get our government, to violate the actual rights of the minority, the life, liberty, or property of the minority. So Madison, in a country such as ours, is looking for a Republican remedy to the disease that he's beholding the disease, the disease that's most incident to Republican government, if you read the context of the statement and what he says in letter A, which is the context, it's both from Federalist number 10, that disease is the majority helping themselves to the property of the minority, meaning the wealthy. So the majority getting pressuring the federal government to take money away from the minority, the wealthy, those who are financially successful, and getting them to pay for stuff for us. Now this is seen as wrong to do in that day and time. It's something that's become acceptable and accepted and justified now, but by the founders this was not right. And so they found a way to prevent it, and the problems of letter A are sort of solved by the parts of the Constitution in letter D. And it's a Republican remedy, because what you'll see is it has to do with transferring some powers from the states to the federal government. You may remember that I said that the people have the most input into what the state governments do. Now this is usually a good thing, but when the people use that ability to do wrong things, like violating the right of property, then it's a good thing to transfer that power to the federal government, so long as it's done constitutionally, which is what's spelled out in letter D. So the power of Congress to make uniform laws concerning bankruptcies was to make sure that states would not make it too easy to declare bankruptcy. Congress has the power to coin money, whereas states are not allowed to coin money. That is to transfer that power over money to the federal government so that it won't be used to just print money and cause inflation and violate the right to property. You can see in Article 1, Section 10, the third bullet of letter D, the states are forbidden to make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. That's because it was considered to be wicked or improper for a government to do that. Now you can see that we've abandoned that way of looking at things. So if you take out your wallet and here's the $20 bill, it'll say on here that this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. What dollar bills used to say is that this is exchangeable for its value in gold and silver. That's no longer the case. So the federal government is just printing money now, especially now that we're going into so much debt. There's not enough people who are willing to lend the federal government this kind of money. So we're printing money, and whether you think that's a good thing, a bad thing, a necessary thing, I just want you to see that it's very much contrary to what the founders were insisting on and their understanding of right and wrong, and especially the need to honor the right to acquire and possess property, because inflation is a violation of that right. If you look at the textbook, I'll give you some examples of just how much our currency has been devalued over the last several decades.